The disc landed at a ranch at Corona, New Mexico. The rancher turned it over to the Air Force. Rancher W.W. Brazell was the man who discovered the saucer.
What I thought was a star began coming in my direction at a very rapid rate of speed.
The unidentified object, which some sources thought might be a blimp, moved slowly down the Pacific coast from Santa Monica and disappeared south of Long Beach.
I saw a UFO, and it went down the river, turned right at the United Nations, turned left, and then down the river.
UFO Classified. UFO Classified. No more plausible deniability. Fact, fiction, or the truth. You decide. And now, the new voice of the high desert, the hostess of UFO Classified, Erica Lukes.
Well, happy Vantopia Friday, everyone. I'm Erica Lukes. Always a pleasure to be here with you, and I would like to thank all of my listeners from all over the globe. Every week, the listenership seems to grow, and I couldn't be more excited because to me, this is the most important thing I will ever do with my life, and it is vital that all of you get good, credible information if you are going to look into this subject. And I hope you do, because we have to do this. So this week, I want to let you know this is a pre-recorded show because I am in New Mexico, and tomorrow I will be speaking at the New Mexico UFO conference. So I probably am not nervous at all, maybe a little bit, but it will be wonderful. I have a lot of things to say about some cases that are important I've been working on here in Utah that will always be ongoing. And I will be sharing the stage with John Greenwald, Stanton Friedman, and Dave Marler. So this will be a pleasure. I will keep you posted on that. You can go to UFO Classified on Facebook to see my updates and photos. Please tell your friends about the show. And I would like to talk a little bit about my guest tonight, who is somebody I've been following since I really became involved in this. And when you talk about people that have made a considerable contribution for decades in this field, I mean, I can't think of anyone that I could think of besides Philip Mantle. I mean, I could think of other people, but Philip is just incredible. He is coming to us tonight from overseas. He's over in the UK. But he is an author. He just has a new book out, UFOs Over Romania, that we'll be talking about. He lectures. He's a broadcaster, researches unidentified flying objects, and his interest began in 1979 when he joined the British UFO Research Association and the Yorkshire UFO Society. He was nominated in 1985 as Investigator of the Year by UFOS, and in 1987 he was appointed to the Council of Management of Bufora. And he was also involved with MUFON. He was appointed the representative in 1988 for MUFON, and he was awarded in 1992 as an honorary member of Research Institution on Anomalous Phenomena, which I would love to talk more about. And he knows how to be very thoughtful and diligent. He is famous for the Alien Autopsy film that came out. He did incredible work on that. He has written a number of books, so add those books to your collection. And he is working now. I mean, Philip, I'm just happy to have you here because I look at your bio and it is incredible. There's so much that I'm just really impressed with what you've done.
Well, thank you very much, Erica. You make me sound really old. You've done a lot. I mean, but you have done a tremendous amount. And the amazing thing to me is that you've hung in there, and that's impressive. Well, yeah, I mean, there are, a number of my colleagues here in the UK that have been around as long as I have, but, we're the last of a few, Erica. We seem to be a dying breed, I'm afraid to say, but yeah, I just keep on going. UFOs was always a personal thing for me, Erica. I always wanted to find out for myself. And I'd like to think I've found some of the answers that I was looking for, but not all of them. So, here I am.
Well, I am really happy that you're here, and like I said, you've always been somebody that I knew I needed to come in contact with and learn from, because there's so much wisdom that you can impart to all of us about everything. And I got into this just like you did because I had a personal experiences, and I wanted to know what the truth was behind that. I don't know if I'll ever find that out, but it certainly has. My opinion has changed dramatically since I started this.
Well, I'm the same, Erica. I mean, as a young man, as far back as I can remember, I was always interested in all things paranormal, if you like. And then, through my teens, UFOs seemed to come to the fore. And I was quite fortunate that my aunt, who lived just around the corner, showed me a small newspaper ad. And it was for the first meeting of the Yorkshire UFO Society in a city called Leeds in West Yorkshire. So I went, and then the group was founded by brothers Graham and Mark Birdsall. Graham went on, of course, to eventually publish UFO magazine in the UK, which is selling 40, 50,000 copies a time. And, that was it. I was hooked. I sat there and listened for about 6 months, taking it all in, Erica. But I'm the type of chap who, when he sees a button that says "don't press," I want to know why I shouldn't press it. No, so I wasn't satisfied just sitting there and letting someone else tell me. So that's when I decided to get more involved, and I've been there ever since.
Isn't it? It's just for me. I look at this, and the more I learn, the more data I look at, the more history I uncover with the help of some really good people. I just sit there with my mouth hanging open because of the gravity of the situation. And I was just saying that, for me, when I got into this, and it hasn't, obviously it's been within the past few years, but the sentiment of, how did we go from taking this with utmost seriousness? You've got the 1952 Washington, D.C. flap, where everyone was on high alert, and investigators and researchers in the United States took this very, very seriously. And now you've got the sentiment that it's kind of more of a, let's have a backyard party and shine flashlights in the sky and not do our due diligence as researchers. How did that happen?
Well, it's definitely changed, Erica. I mean, one of the reasons is the internet. I mean, when I started, there was no such thing. And I was quite fortunate, Erica, but just a short drive from where we live is the Yorkshire Dales National Park. Largely rural, and there's an area around the market town of Skipton in North Yorkshire was, at the time, throughout the 1980s, was really a hotbed of UFO sightings. And of course, we were really the only UFO group around, and a lot of those sightings came our way. And there was a time, Erica, that we just couldn't cope. We had that many. And not only did we have that many, we had every type of thing you could imagine. And one of our members was a police sergeant, Tony Dodd. Tony sadly no longer with us, but Tony encountered the phenomena up close and personal, and also took a couple of photographs of it as well. So what we tried to do, rightly or wrongly, we honestly believed, Erica, that we could ourselves encounter the phenomena up close and personal in and around the Yorkshire Dales, simply because of the profusion of the sightings that were there. And we never quite managed it. I think I got a brief glimpse of it once, but boy, did we certainly try. We also studied the area. One of the things we did, for example, we stayed in a caravan on the moors for a whole week, encouraging people from all around to come forward. And they did, and they told us of their encounters and their sightings going back decades, Erica. So we
out
that whatever we were experiencing at that time wasn't anything new. It had been there for a long time, and they were only delighted that someone was actually taking the subject seriously. I mean, for example, myself, Mark Birdsall and Graham Birdsall, we lectured in front of the whole physics department at Leeds University to try and gain their assistance. They gave us some practical advice. They certainly didn't dismiss us, but that's all they were able to do at the time. But that's how serious the subject was taken by us and those that knew us, Erica. So, things have certainly changed, but that's how we began anyway.
Oh, that is incredible. And for you to reach out to the academic community, I mean, we don't see a lot of that now, and I think that's unfortunate. And I'm hoping that we can shift the sentiment and begin to engage academia and the mainstream scientific community, because we really have some curious things going on. And I definitely feel that in the United States that things are picking up again, even though we're seeing a little different type of manifestation. And I know that I heard on a radio show where you were talking about how sightings have changed over the decades.
Exactly. I mean, there's two things there. I mean, one regarding the academia. Ufology in general has always said, oh yes, we need to get scientists involved and help us study this phenomena, which we do. But then when some of these scientists step forward and don't actually agree with people's belief systems, they then want to get rid of them. So you can't have it both ways. But as for the phenomena changing, Erica, we tend to look at what's in front of us now. But I'm fortunate that, I've seen it over nearly 40 years, and others like you mentioned Stanton Friedman a lot longer than I have. And the phenomena has evolved, for want of a better word. If you think back to Kenneth Arnold, his sighting was relatively simple. And then it morphed in the 1950s into the Space Brothers, and then in the 60s we had Betty and Barney Hill and so on. And today we don't have any of that. We have flying triangles and abductions and little bug-eyed guys. So it has changed. It has changed over the decades. Now, either it's changed or the people investigating it have changed, or both. I mean, I don't really know. But it certainly has evolved without question.
And that's really interesting. I mean, I know that when I look back, and my particular passion are the orange orbs, anomalous light phenomena. And it's interesting because you do go back historically, and in certain locations you find, this goes back centuries, if not longer, the same types of sightings in these specific areas. But then, like you said, you have the era of the abduction, and that seems to have quieted down a bit. I don't know why. That's rather curious. But do you think that it could be because it's intelligent and it's picking up on us and it's becoming a little trickier? Or what do you attribute that to?
In the orange orbs, for example, it is exactly what we had in huge profusion in and around the Yorkshire Dales National Park. And we have two photographs of it as well. And if you look at other areas around the world, Erica, you have the Martha lights in Texas, for example. In Australia, I think they're called the Min Min lights. So there are hot spots of these things. But when you dig deeper, and I'll give you an example. Mark Birdsall and I went to a small village. We had a letter from a gentleman there, and he gave us his house number. We phoned him up, arranged to go and meet him. Of course, when we got there, it was literally, it wasn't even a village, it was just a few houses. And none of the houses had any numbers on them. So we didn't know which was his house, so we just knocked on a door and asked for the gentleman. And they said, well, it's not this house, it's that one over there. And they said, what have you come about? Are you here to investigate the ghost dog? Well, of course we weren't. And then we got into the legend of the ghost dog, which turned out not to be a dog at all. It was two orange spheres that used to meander down through the village. And of course, they interpreted them in legend and folklore as the orange glowing eyes of the ghost dog. So once we started digging, we found all these other alleged paranormal things mixed in with what we today call ufology. And I've got an example on Facebook of a girl. You heard a story from her grandmother in Wales, and her grandmother was about 17, and she says she was walking home. It was about 6 o'clock one night. It was dark,
And they thought they heard something, and then they looked back, and a ball of fire was behind them, and they ran, and the fireball came after them, and they ran in the pub crying, and they said this ball was outside, and all the men went outside and saw it rolling away. The sound it made was like knocking against, a tin. The next night, the men went out after dark to see if there was anything to be seen again. What they did see was a very tall man. His hair and waistcoat were shining silver. They said goodnight to him a few times, but he never moved or answered. Now, the strange thing about this particular encounter, the date of this is 1847.
Oh, wow. And you say that, and it, first of all, it just gives me the chills, but it reminds me of what we would hear about a skinwalker, the shapeshifter.
Yeah. Now, if you were to say that today, you get a whole different interpretation of it. I'll give you another example. A friend of mine, and she's no longer with us, was Cynthia Hind from Zimbabwe. And Cynthia investigated and researched the subject across Africa, not just Zimbabwe. But she went to see one village chief, and he had a sighting. And at the end of it, she said, "Chief, you've seen this silver-suited figure. What do you think it was?" And he says, "Well, Cynthia," he says, "it must be the spirits of our ancestors." And she turned to him and said, "Well, your ancestors wore animal skins." And he said, "Well, times change." So it shows you when you dig a little bit deeper how the legends and the mythology and the folklore are all intertwined with what we now call UFOs, the UFO phenomena. And it's fascinating, it really is. But the one I read out previously was from 1847 in Wales, a place called Llanelli. And make of it what you will.
I mean, this is fascinating to me. I mean, I keep collecting stories, and I've been fortunate enough to have people like Barry Greenwood send me really important documents, all the historical documents about Min Min, about Marfa and some of the Brown Mountain and some of these places. And it's just a trip that you get every single type of, UFO, paranormal, strange creatures. I mean, whatever these areas are they a portal of some sort, or, what's going on?
Yeah, it's been given various names. The name that's banded around today is portal. It used to be a window area. That was another. For example, in parts of Russia, they just call them M zones or anomalous zones. And it's exactly the same thing. You start off researching one particular aspect, and if you dig a little bit deeper, you find all these other things as well. I'll give you an example again, going back to the Yorkshire Dales when we were housed in the caravan. A retired couple came to see us, and they used to drive every couple of weeks out of the way to go to a large supermarket. In those days, there wasn't one where they lived. And they were driving back from the supermarket, same route every time, Erica. And they said, "Oh, look at that." Right back from the side of the road, they said, "There's a factory being built, and it's got all its lights on." So they shrugged their shoulders and never thought any more about it. Anyway, a few weeks later, back for some more groceries at the supermarket, same route. Guess what? There was no factory. It's not there, but they saw it. Now, was it a factory? Was it something else? I mean, you tell me. And they didn't have an explanation for it at all.
Oh, that's interesting. I wonder if it was some sort of like a time. I mean, that's the thing. We have no clue. I mean, this is something that as I research this and look into this, I have to wonder, is it truly extraterrestrial? Is it interdimensional or terrestrial? What are your feelings on that?
I've recently been criticized for saying I'm not convinced, or I don't believe in the extraterrestrial hypothesis. I mean, when I first started all those years back, Eric, and I had no doubt, these were aliens from wherever. I don't, got here. However, I don't know how, but as I studied the subject, as I read more about the subject, as I interviewed more people and so on, it seemed to me that a straight up nuts and bolts extraterrestrial hypothesis just didn't seem to fit. It was almost as if it was forced to fit, but it didn't really. I mean, think about it. We have reports of UFOs landing on the ground, and I've investigated such cases, and to see humanoid beings around it, and what do? Not an awful lot. They tend to fiddle around a bit. I've just read that one out from 1847. And they said good night to him a few times, but he never moved or answered. It is bizarre, and it's one of the bizarre aspects of the phenomena that is largely ignored. Not only that, when certain individuals, not everybody, when they encounter the phenomena up close and personal, they don't necessarily act like you think they would. I mean, they tend to think, oh, that was good, and go back to doing what they were doing previously, as if nothing had happened.
Yes, I do, and I've seen that. I mean, it's so interesting to me because, I've had an experience and seen things, and I'll have, another person with me, and that other person is just, that's really strange. That's really strange, and you can see them trying to rationalize what they'd seen, and then the next day it's explainable, even though the explanation just doesn't hold up. It is really interesting the way people process this.
Yeah, I mean, again, I remember in the very early days, I investigated, along with Mark Birdsall, a UFO landing in broad daylight, not very far from where I live now, and it was a mum and several of her children who witnessed it. But the thing about it, Erica, the area where it happened is a very built-up area. There's what you would call in America a highway either side of this town called Normanton. It was a beautiful sunny day. All the children were away from school because it was the school holidays. Yet nobody else saw anything. And how many times have you heard that? This lady said, I was sure the next day I was going to hear about it on the local radio or in the newspaper. But nothing. I have to cut you off because we're going to go to a break, but I want to hear more about that when we get back, because it just raises so many questions about perceptions and how people deal with this, and is there something more at play here? I mean, I don't know, but we need to figure this out, and we're going to take a really quick break, and I want to again tell everybody that this is a pre-recorded show, so if you're in chat, know that I can't answer or ask any questions, but, it's a good show. So stick around and make sure you find UFO Classified on Facebook. We're going to talk with Philip Mantle when we get back about his new book and much, much more. We'll see you on the other side of the break.
Stand by. This is UFO Classified with Erica Lukes. The phone lines are open now at 702-425-9230. That's 702-425-9230. Worldwide callers use Skype name KCOR Radio. More UFO Classified with Erica Lukes on the KCOR Digital Radio Network. After this. You're listening to UFO Classified with Erica Lukes, where the truth isn't hidden beneath the black lines of a Sharpie.
That's the craziest thing I've ever heard.
To be on with Erica, call 702-425-9230. That's 702-425-9230. Worldwide callers use Skype name KCOR Radio.
Radio contact.
Share your thoughts on the show on Twitter by using hashtag KCOR. Or head over to the live chats at KCORradio.com.
The audience goes nuts!
And now, your host of UFO Classified.
Are you ready?
Erica Lukes.
Welcome back, everyone. This is Erica Lukes, and you are listening to KCOR Digital Broadcasting Network, the best network on the planet. I have to give a shout out to my wonderful producer, Tina Marie, who always does an exceptional job. And I am very lucky that I found this station. I adore it. I am here tonight, with Philip Mantle, who has made tremendous contributions to our field. He is joining me from the UK. He's an author, a publicist, lecturer, broadcaster, and researches UFOs and has made some interesting discoveries over the years, the decades, which he is sharing with us tonight. He has a new book out called UFOs Over Romania, and we will talk about that. But when we left for the break, we were talking about some orange orb cases, his early experiences with his friend Tony Dodd, and now, you know, we're going to get back into that and some of the sightings that you were talking about when we left off.
Well, yeah, I mean, again, you know, we tried our best, Erica, to try and confront the phenomena face to face, and you can call it sky watching if you like. Sometimes we do that for fun, you know, but more often than not, one or two of us would just go to these locations and you know, keep our fingers crossed. And I remember being on the moors, pitch black, with myself and Graham Birdsall. And we look over a particular piece of moorland called Carlton Moor. I mean, there's no buildings, there's no lights. It was gone midnight, and then right in the distance, a little light appeared. And I looked at Graham and I said, "What's that?" And he said, "Well, I don't know." Now, down there's a little valley down there in the dip. There's another small village called Lothersdale. You can't see it from where we were. So we get in the car. Graham's driving, and anybody that knew Graham will know he used to drive like a madman. So we're streaking down these small country roads at unbelievable speed. Of course, Graham was driving, and I'm looking out of the passenger window, and at one point, I don't know whether the wall or the gate I could see, but I could see down the valley. And right hanging in the valley, Erica, was a huge mass of coloured lights. And you know, sometimes when you see the firework displays and the rocket goes up and then it explodes in a big ball of all coloured lights, it was like that, but it was just hanging there. And I told Graham, and all Graham could do was curse, because he didn't see it because he was concentrating on the driving. And we got down into Lothersdale. I mean, it was deathly silent. We drove around the moors and come back up, didn't see anything else. So that was as close as we ever got to it. We saw it, well, I saw it for a few split seconds, if you like. And Graham was as mad as hell, not at me, because he hadn't been able to witness it himself. And that was kind of typical of some of the sightings in the area. For example, again, just on that same moor, is what we call a cattery. Take your cat there and leave it there when you go on holiday. And the gentleman who owns it, he came out late one night, do his last check of all the animals he had in his care, and he says, I just happened to turn around and look back to the farmhouse where he lived. And he said, literally, there was 5 dinner plates, orange coloured, at the back of his farmhouse, doing what he described as acrobatics. Those were his exact word, acrobatics. He says, these weren't little lights in the distance. These were literally, you know, just behind his farmhouse. And he was stunned. I mean, he said, I just stood there in amazement and watched them, you know. And we have, you know, a couple of photographs of them that Tony took, not of the greatest of quality, but they do reflect what was happening in and around those moors, and still is.
Oh my gosh, so where can we see the photographs?
Well, I'll email you the photographs.
Oh, I was so excited.
And the second one he took 3 photographs. It's at night, and the first 2, there was shake on it. So the third one, he wedged his elbows onto the car roof, took the photograph, because this is the day before digital, this was film, and thankfully it came out all right. Now, those that go back as far as I do will probably remember an organisation in America called Ground Saucer Watch. And they were the first organisation to do computer enhancement of alleged UFO photographs. And of course, at that time, it had been run by a chap called William Spalding. Now, officially, Ground Source Watch had closed. They'd ceased their involvement. When I knew Bill Spalding, so we sent this photograph to him, and he computer analysed it. And he said it was the only one they'd ever had from the UK that turned out to be unidentified. And he said, whatever this luminosity was, it was self-luminous and giving off a vapor or a gas. And, you make of it what you will. I mean, I have the computer enhancements as well, the pictures of it. And this was a long time before your home PC and your laptops and your tablets and whatever else you can lay your hands on. And, that was just typical of the type of things that were seen in and around that area.
Oh, that is so interesting. I'm really excited to see that, because it sounds exactly like what we're seeing now, especially in and around the Skinwalker Ranch area, Duchesne County. We have sightings of similar type objects over Dugway Proving Ground and the NSA and over the Salt Lake International Airport. So it's curious, and whatever these objects are, I mean, we get reports, like you mentioned in the first segment, of them behaving intuitively or reacting to the people that they're around.
Yeah, I mean, there's a colleague of mine who's no longer involved in the subject, but there was a chap called Albert Buddle. And Albert was a very level-headed chap, had a science background. He was a science teacher in high school. Eventually went to work at the Science Museum in London. And Albert took a look at the phenomena. And I'm not saying he's right or he was wrong, Erica, but this is just one possible explanation. Albert was of the opinion, after being involved for quite a number of years, that these balls of light are naturally formed by the Earth. They are Earthlights, for want of a better word. But they are electrically charged or electromagnetically charged. And if you get too close to them, they can basically send you boo-loo. He also went on to say that there are parts of the Earth that also have this electromagnetism, and nowadays we have manufacture it with telephone masts, mobile phones, and so on, and that some people are hypersensitive. In other words, they are allergic to it, and if you encounter this phenomena, you will have a whole host of experiences. That's why the phenomena remains the same, but how we relate it down the decades and down the centuries actually changes.
Oh, that's fascinating.
So, now, in 1871, that I told you from Wales, they said he had a silver-suited waistcoat, and they said good evening to this man. But what they had actually seen was this ball of light. Today we encounter it and we think it's intelligently controlled, but if you get too close, then it can cause a whole host of, I won't call them apparitions, and I don't like to call them anything else. Michael Persinger in Canada looked into this, and Paul Devereaux here in the UK.
Yes.
Wrote books on Earthlights. And it is fascinating. I'm not saying it's the answer. What I'm saying is it is a fascinating way, different way, to look at the subject. The phenomenon has remained the same. It's just that the way we perceive it and the way we interact with it has changed down the centuries. And then that's why you get the myth and the folklore. Like I told you, the lady said, we've come to find out about the ghost dog. Now, there was no dog, but it was these two balls of light that meandered down the village. And they just thought, folklore was that they were the eyes of the devil dog, the ghost dog.
Mm-hmm.
And there's other areas, for example, in the Peak District in Derbyshire, where people have seen a row of lights going across the hills and the moors. And they actually called out the park rangers, thinking there was somebody lost on the moors. But there wasn't. And then the myth grew up around it that what you were actually watching is the lanterns of the Roman soldiers, because there used to be a Roman road there at one point. So again, local folklore and mythology has interpreted these lights in different ways. Spook lights, they're sometimes called. And there's even when you go down through part of the Peak District, on driving, there's a huge rock you see in front of you. You don't run into it, you turn around the corner, but the rock face is actually called Shining Bluff, because it gives off these lights at times. It's not your car headlights reflecting off it, it's the rock itself has given off these lights down the years, and the locals, not that there is many live there, have given it that name.
So does Persinger, does he believe that this is an intelligent thing? Because I didn't get the impression, and I need to study him more, that, I mean, does he think that there's intelligence behind this, or does he just think that this is a natural phenomenon?
He thinks this is a rare natural phenomenon, as yet unrecognised by science. And if you like, it is a distant cousin of earthquake lights. You know, we know that just before and after an earthquake, a kind of blanket of light can be seen in the sky. These are a smaller version of that, a more concentrated version, if you like. And it can happen where the Earth crosses under pressure from fault lines, or it can be discharged from hilltops, or where the Earth is under pressure because of large bodies of water on it, and a whole host of similar things. And of course, that would also explain why we have, in inverted comma, portals or window areas or anomalous zones where this phenomena is reported there year in, year out, decade in, decade out, because the pressures on the landscape, like fault lines or lakes or whatever, remain the same. They're always there. And that would also explain the peaks and troughs in the sightings. It's a you know, just one theory, Eric. It's just a different way of looking at it. Now, I'm not saying I'm right, and I'm not saying anyone's wrong, but what Michael Persinger did, he developed a helmet. He put this helmet on, and it sends a small electromagnetic charge through your brain. It doesn't do you any harm, you're perfectly safe, but you feel a whole host of strange sensations, like not being alone in the room, but it differs from individual to individual. And it's an interesting area, if nothing else.
It is really interesting, and I think that it's, with the paranormal investigations, I mean, it's the same thing. Sometimes you'll go into these older homes and there will be, you do the EMF, check the fields, and they've got faulty wiring or something that can cause sickness and disorientation and all of these things. So where is it just something that's explainable that is causing all of these hallucinations, and then when does it kind of move into the paranormal, supernatural type of realm?
Well, yeah, I mean, you mentioned a new book. I haven't written a new book, I've just published one.
Oh!
UFOs over Romania. I started my own little publishing venture last year. And we started with UFOs over Poland. And now it's UFOs over Romania. Now, the author is Dan Farkas, PhD. And there's some this is not a sales pitch, there's some fascinating info in the book. But at the end, Dan gives his own explanation for what he thinks may be behind the UFO phenomena. Nothing to do with Earthlights, and he happens to think, and he points out the absurdity of what he calls the humanoids, the stupid things they do when we see them.
I can't wait to read this. I mean, that is, and I'm so sorry. I don't know why I thought that you had just written another book, and I'm a total, that's the way I roll. And clearly my animals are upset, so don't mind them in the background. Maybe there's some sort of something going on, but I mean, with this book, now you've been publishing for how long?
Start at the end of last year. I mean, I've been the editor of a couple of magazines down the year, Erica, and people submitted all kinds of articles, and it's just that these two gentlemen, kind of stood out for me. Peter Cielebias in Poland wrote me a couple of articles that were fascinating, and just out of the blue, Peter sent me a manuscript, not to be published. He just said, "I thought this would interest you, Philip." He was more practicing his written English, to be honest. And I read it, and I thought, this is really good. And a friend of mine encouraged me to publish it, so I set up Flying Disc Press, and I published it the end of last year. There's a few errors in it because I was new to the business, but it was a fascinating read. And then Dr. Farkas came forward because he'd written for me before, and he said, "Well, I've got a similar type of book, Philip," and he put that forward. And again, even after all these years, Eric, I think I've heard it all and read it all. And when something like that lands in your inbox, and there were things there I'd never heard of before. But what Dan thinks is behind the subject, he calls them hyper-civilizations. And his theory, and this is what it is that, yes, we are being visited by beings from another world. I use that word very loosely. That interact with us physically and spiritually, or psychically, whichever way you want to look at it. But they are so advanced. They're not just a few thousand years. They're a long way in advance of us. That we have difficulty in perceiving what they are. For example, he gives one example. If you've got a TV set and stuck it on an anthill, the ants would not have a clue of what that thing was. They know there's something there and they crawl all over it, but they wouldn't be able to decipher it. So we are the anthill in that respect. And again, it's a fascinating way of looking at it. I think Carl Sagan said that if aliens did visit the Earth, they would look to us like magic. That's pretty much what Dan is saying in some respect. They are so advanced that we, as a species, not just individually, but as a species, we cannot interact with them because we can't understand what's there in the first place. It's like trying to dream up a new colour. You can't do it, And again, it's a very plausible hypothesis, and he's put his reasons why he believes that as well. And it's fascinating to read.
Yeah, and I am definitely going to be reading that because to me that is something that makes the most sense. It's logical in his thought, and I think it's interesting that now that we have such advancements in technology and we're able to get that technology, the infrared technology, and we're seeing things that we could never see before, and that's opening up new worlds to us. So who knows what will happen with that, but.
Yeah, we'll say that the phenomena, again, has always been there, but we have interpreted it differently down the decades, down the centuries. And as our knowledge, our understanding, and our science expands, we understand it a little bit better. I mean, many years back, I hosted Whitley Strieber at a conference in London. And one of the things that Whitley said, in a Q&A at the end of his lecture was, we're learning to ask better questions. And I've never forgotten that. And I think it's a profound statement. And again, I think today we are still learning to ask better questions. And long may that last.
Absolutely. And that is really profound. It's beautiful. And I hope that we can keep doing that. And it's just, how do we begin to educate people and point them in a good direction? Because I think you and I know, and this brings up a question I wanted to talk to you about. When you see different people that are attracted to this, they've either had their own personal experiences, or perhaps they're ego driven and they're doing this for selfish motives. And then you've got people that are perhaps maybe a little bit unstable who are coming into this just to find a place or whatever. But how do we differentiate between that? And how, as researchers that really want the truth, how do we protect ourselves from kind of falling into the trap of some of these delusional thinkers?
Well, I would just say, don't get involved in any infighting. Just walk away from it. And I've always told people not to believe what I'm telling them. That go and find the answers for yourself. And if you come to a conclusion, that no one else agrees with, well, that's just unfortunate for them, so long as you're happy with that conclusion, either on a particular sighting or about the UFO phenomenon in general. We have a simple thing called the internet with a vast array of material at your disposal. But I also think ufology in general lacks a focal point. When I started, the focal point probably was Dr. Alan Hynek. He was widely respected by ufologists around the world and the scientific community. And he was open-minded and didn't take sides, wasn't ego-driven. We don't have anyone like that. It would be nice if we did again, that had that guidance and credibility to the subject, like he did, like John Mack did. God bless him, he's no longer with us either. So I think we need somebody of that stature to be a focal point and to be like the guiding hand, if you like, or the nice uncle who just taps you on the head and say, that's a good boy, or don't do that. You know what I mean? Something along.
Yes. We do, and I think that we were talking a little bit on break about I feel there's a definite lack of effective leadership in this, and I hope that will change. I think that it's imperative that it does change, because we need to begin to take this issue seriously again and understand that there are security threats involved. There's also a risk to aviation safety. I mean, there are many different facets of this, and they're all serious. So if we had that guidance and leadership, I think it would be a tremendous help. You're right.
Well, yeah, and it may be just around the corner. Who knows? And we'll have to wait and see on that respect. But in the meantime, I would still say, don't believe anything that anybody tells you. Find out for yourself. There's no reason why you can't do that. And I always said, if I came to the conclusion that UFOs were, the result of, fairies at the bottom of the garden, I don't care if no one else agrees with me, because I entered ufology for my own personal reasons. I wasn't looking for glory or television shows. Everything I've done has kind of happened by accident. So, the truth may well be out there, and, it's easy for you to go and look for it and perhaps find it as well.
That is beautiful. And on that note, we're going to take a quick break. And I would just like to thank all of you again for tuning in and spreading the word about UFO Classified. We're going to be right back.
Listen very carefully.
This is Houston. Say again, please.
Houston, we've had a problem.
This is UFO Classified, live every Friday night, 4 p.m. Pacific, 7 p.m. Eastern, exclusively on the KCOR Digital Radio Network. The truth is out there, just waiting to be discovered.
And now, if you will, accompany me on a journey to the future.
For more information on the host of UFO Classified, Erica Lukes, upcoming guests, as well as links to the past shows,
visit her website at ufoclassified.com.
UFO Classified.
UFO Classified. UFO Classified.
This is KCOR Las Vegas, home of the Digital Radio Network, broadcasting from a shack just south of Area 51.
Wait, that doesn't exist.
This is the KCOR Digital Radio Network. Now for the news.
The disc landed at a ranch at Corona, New Mexico, and the rancher turned it over to the Air Force. Rancher W.W. Brazil was the man who discovered the saucer.
What I thought was a star began coming in my direction at a very rapid rate of speed.
The unidentified object, which some sources thought might be a blimp, moved slowly down the Pacific coast from Santa Monica and disappeared south of Long Beach.
I saw a UFO, and it went down the river, turned right at the United Nations, turned left, and then down the river.
UFO Classified.
UFO Classified.
No more plausible deniability. Fact, fiction, or the truth. You decide. And now, the new voice of the high desert, the hostess of UFO Classified, Erica Lukes.
Welcome back, everyone. I am here with British author, co-author, publicist, lecturer, man of many talents who has been around and contributed greatly to our field of research. Philip is joining me from the UK tonight, and he has Flying Disc Press. So go check out some of the great publications there. And one of them is UFOs over Romania. That's the newest publication. And this sounds fascinating. I'm definitely buying this today. And I like where the author is going with some of his thoughts on what we're seeing with the phenomena. But Philip, when we, in our last couple of segments, we talked about the balls of fire and some of the strange occurrences and the lights in the sky type events. Now we've got people that I see in America who are really dismissing some of the lights in the sky cases. And the big thought here is that they're Chinese lanterns. But what I've seen, which has become a little bit alarming to not only myself, but some other researchers, is that people are jumping to that conclusion without conducting good, solid research. And when they do, when we go back through some of the cases, these objects are clearly behaving in ways that Chinese lanterns couldn't behave, like hovering in place for 45 minutes, moving against the wind, all of these things. And, you're going back here to the 1800s, and we didn't have Chinese lanterns back then. So why is there that shift to dismiss things, do you think?
Almost, Chinese lanterns, certainly in the Western world, there's been a bit of a craze these last couple of years. So it's understandable in some respects. However, you must take a close look at these because, as we've pointed out, the balls of light, the earth lights, whatever you want to call them, have been around for a long, long time, long before any Chinese lanterns. And you've also got to look at the area and locations where these things are seen. Now, if anybody wants to see how science and the UFO subject can merge and study these light phenomena, I would recommend Project Hessdalen in Norway. Hessdalen is a valley in central Norway, sparsely populated, and again, in the early 1980s, this light phenomenon was reported in great profusion, and we're talking about the valley is surrounded by 3 mountains. I've been there. I would never be able to pronounce the names of it in 1,000 years. But these light phenomena are seen below the mountain tops, down in the valley, so they're not satellites or aeroplanes and so on. So what the UFO groups in Sweden and Norway did, they banded together and they approached the university and the military, because in the winter, these places are seriously cold, Eric, I can assure you.
I've heard.
They set up camp, stuck the cameras outside, and hey presto, they were able to capture these things on film and even on radar. They had a radar set up at the time. Couldn't get any movie film because this was the old videotapes, and quite literally, the cameras would just freeze. So skipping along to today, it's run by a chap called Erling Strand. They now have a permanent scientific station in the Hessdalen Valley, monitoring the phenomena, monitoring the area, 24 hours a day. And they have captured it on movie film.
Oh my gosh, and they have, and I've had Erling on the show before, and he's somebody that I talk to frequently because I think that the work that he's done is the most impressive work that we have to date with regard to scientific data.
Yeah, I mean, it was one of the last field excursions, if you like, that Dr. Hynek went on. He went to Hessdalen in the early 80s, not long before he died. And, I have photographs of him there. It was a friend of mine actually took him, and I think it got down to about -20 on the way up there, and the car actually froze, literally.
Oh my gosh.
The wind chill factor made it even colder. It was only about -10 when I was there. And to begin with, they were in a caravan and tents, but now they don't have to do that. So literally there's been scientific parties studying this phenomena there. They now have, it's taught and discussed and taught in the college and the high school there. And they've had field trips recently by, students and people from all over the place. And what Hynek called Project Hessdalen was a UFO laboratory. And that's exactly what it was, and that's what exactly it is today. So, rather, we know Chinese lanterns exist, but the thing about this light phenomena, Erica, is that it's not as exciting as aliens coming from wherever, and there aren't any pictures of aliens anyway, there aren't.
And we should talk about that too.
Any kind of scrutiny anyway. But this light phenomena is there, it is tangible, it's been photographed, it's been observed, and again it's been seen as being stationary for quite a while. They think it reacted to a laser beam they shone at it, but they can't be 100% sure. It was pulsing as it went through the sky. They fired the laser beam at this light, and the rate of its pulses changed. Now, whether that was a reaction to the laser beam or not, there's no way of telling, but it was just an observation they made. And to begin with, the researchers there thought that this phenomenon was had a form of intelligence, because they would see it, they would rush out, get the cameras ready, go and take the photograph, and it would be gone. They'd go back in and it would come back again, almost as if it was playing with them. But that was just in the early days. I don't think they believe that anymore. But it's fascinating. Unfortunately, when I went there, I didn't see anything apart from snow. But yeah, so I would you can go online at Project Hessdalen, you'll find it, and you can see the film they've taken of it. You'll see the photographs. You can read about the history of the project, and they're not Chinese lanterns, whatever they may be.
No, you're right. They're not. And it is really neat. And I love the way that they engage the younger generation. They get those students there for science camp, and they're teaching them about science and how to have an open mind with regard to studying our world. And I love that. That's really an exceptional thing they do over there. And I hope I get to go over there someday soon.
Well, it's a great place. One of the things they did in the early days to try and get the scientific community on board, they didn't call the phenomenon UFOs. They just called it balls of light. And even though there was 2 UFO groups running the study, they made presentations to the various universities, didn't mention UFOs at all. They just talked about these balls of light, and they got the assistance of both the academia and the military. The military gave them some practical expertise. I think even brought them some firewood at one point as well.
Oh, that's awesome. So with all of this and all of the good work that has been done, how do we think that people still don't understand that there is something truly remarkable taking place?
Well, even I can be quite skeptical at times, Eric. I don't know if it's because I'm getting older, but the well-known skeptics. Philip Klass was one of them, but he was more a debunker than a skeptic. So ignore the debunkers. Now, I always give this idea, this way of looking at things, is that a lot of us here have flown on an aeroplane. Yeah?
Yep.
Now, who was the first people to fly? It was in a powered flight. It was the Wright brothers, Orville and Wilbur. They were skeptics because the scientific thinking of the day was that you could not fly in a heavier than air machine. And obviously, Orville and Wilbur did. They were skeptical about that. So there's nothing wrong with having a skeptical attitude. I have a couple of colleagues here who are hugely skeptical. They will tell you that, yes, there is a UFO phenomenon, but they just don't think that equals beings from another world. So even the skeptics would agree that there's something out there. Whether it's worth studying or not is a different matter. That's down to you as an individual. But even a lot of the skeptics will say there is something there. They just disagree on the nature and origin and the interpretation of it.
And that's a good point. And I think that we do need to, if we're ever going to be taken really seriously, we need to step back and say, whoa, we can't say that this is ET. We just can't. We don't have enough data to support that.
What I said at the MUFON Symposium last year is that you should present, unbiased objective, your best work, and leave the scientific community to make their own minds up. And that's what, I think our role as UFO researchers or investigators should be. We can all argue, we can all discuss, there's no problem with that, but in reality, none of us really know. We have our own ideas and our own thoughts. So, for me, from a personal point of view, Eric, I look at me, and I like to think that I'm contributing in some small way to the understanding of this subject. Now, that might not be understanding today, but someone else, maybe next week, next year, or 10 years from now, will be able to make sense of it all. So I look to think that we're documenting the evidence in the hope that somebody somewhere, it might be an individual or a group or whatever, will be able to say, have a eureka moment, if you like, or get there slowly but surely, but the day will come when they will be able to make sense of it all, and that will then be accepted by, the scientific and non-scientific community alike. Whatever that may be, I really don't know. But unless we document our best evidence, Erica, then no one's going to be able to make any sense of it whatsoever. It's as simple as that. And that's not just for ufology, it's any branch of science in the past. What did they do? It's like when they brought a duck-billed platypus back to Europe for the first time, they couldn't believe it. They thought the beak was stuck on and it was some kind of abomination. But we have to document our best evidence and present it unbiased, objectively, and just continue down that path.
Absolutely, absolutely, and I don't appreciate that comment more than I do today. I mean, it's so what we need to do, and I think that we've got to just really work together and then understand that bias has affected the work that we do as investigators, and we have to step back and take that unbiased approach if we're going to move forward. It's imperative. But, and I for me as a researcher, and having had my own personal experiences, like you have seen interesting things as well, I need to be unbiased with my approach. And I realize that, sometimes because of the work that I am doing, that's especially critical, because I can't say that everything is an anomalous light phenomena. I can't. I mean, there are Chinese lanterns. There are things that are taking place that are very explainable, and somehow I have to do my part in educating the public and helping people understand the differences. And I think that organizations have a responsibility to do that as well. I think it would be wonderful if MUFON put out instructional videos to the public talking about different drones or Chinese lanterns or or Venus, different things, teaching us about the natural world and about man-made technology. I think that would be really helpful to the data. I mean, I think that would make the data better.
Yeah, we did, Eric. When we were part of the Yorkshire UFO Society, we got new members. What we'd do is go out into the moorland areas, in small groups, and explain to them some of the things you can see in the night sky that are perfectly natural, like the stars and the planets and so on. So that if they got a report that was similar to what we were seeing, then they could probably discount it. They could get them to learn what the navigation lights of the aircraft look like when they're coming into land and all this kind of thing. Very simple thing, nothing complicated, and then you could rule out certain reports almost straight away. But if you have a doubt, the chap here, Erica, not too long ago, said that being involved in ufology was a complete waste of time, and it really made me think. I thought, well, is he right? And I thought, well, to begin with, it's my time to waste anyway. So, well, it is. I kind of looked back at some of the incidents I've been involved with, and there's one sticks in my mind, and it was actually a wing commander, Royal Air Force, Alan Turner, OBE. Now, at the time, I think this is 1971, if my memory serves me correct, Wing Commander Turner was in charge of military radar in the UK. His security clearance was so high that when the American spy plane came into an airbase in the UK, he was notified about it. At that point, it was still the most secret aircraft in the world. Now, at one point in 1971, he tracked 6 targets over mainland UK. And this was confirmed by Heathrow, that's civilian radar, and other military radar. Now, I've met Wing Commander Turner in person, and what he would say to me is, Philip, I could give you a list of all the things these objects were not, but I cannot tell you what they were. And one of the things he said, it wasn't the rate of travel, linear travel, from A to B. He said they were moving, but it was the way they rose, their altitude. And he said it was beyond anything he'd ever seen, because they had the 2 types of radar. They had the height finder radar as well. And he was immediately ordered to make a full report by the Ministry of Defence, which he did. And of course, there's been a lot of fanfares in recent years about our Ministry of Defence releasing their UFO files, to the National Archives, which they have done. But, Wing Commander Turner's account is not among those archives. Where it's gone, I have no idea. And there are more. He's just one example. So if I ever doubt myself, thinking, is it a waste of time? There's nothing to it. It's all hokey. I just think to things like Wing Commander Turner, and I think, well, no, there is something, like he said, I can tell you what these things were not, and I give you the list, but I cannot tell you what they were. And he put on his first letter to me, UFO with a question mark,
Oh, what a great case. Oh my gosh. These are the things, and I keep going as well. And I've had a couple cases here with radar data and audio data, and they're incredible cases. But sometimes I kind of step back and I ask myself, if there were, a class 2 or 3 civilization here, would they leave trace evidence? And if we know that they would be smarter than that, like, we would be as humans going into, another territory, wouldn't we cover our tracks? We do that with some of the elite military missions. Why do we keep waiting around for all of this great evidence when we know that maybe that's not where we need to go?
Well, here's a conundrum for you, Erica. When we talk about landing cases, and I don't doubt, the veracity of the witnesses or anything like that. I'm not, casting any doubt, but we have a bit of a conundrum. Because you speak to people like Ted Phillips in America. Ted has a database of UFO landing accounts that have left physical traces behind. So that would then, support those that think, UFOs are nuts and bolts in some respect. However, you have many cases where you have these things on the ground and it doesn't even bend a blade of grass. So how does that come about? On one hand, you've got the UFO landing and it burns the grass or leaves a circle or whatever. On the other hand, there's another one, and it doesn't even bend a blade of grass, no imprint, no nothing. There's a question begging to be answered there, Eric, and I but nobody seems to be able to do it. I certainly can't.
No, and it is really interesting, and perhaps there needs to be more dialogue on this, and instead of waiting for kind of the mother lode, the golden case that is coming in, where we'll have all of this evidence. Maybe we should understand that if we actually analyze the data that we have, we'll see patterns, and that's where the mother lode is by identifying these places where something is taking place all the time, getting in there and doing research studies like they do at Hessdalen, and then working from there. So I don't know. All of these things are so important to have dialogues about, though.
Well, absolutely. There is physical evidence there, but physical evidence of what? That's the answer. That's the question, and I certainly don't have the answer. But I give Wing Commander's sighting as one example. There are many others like that. But another interesting question. I've heard it before. But I just read it again recently, and it was, well, why would UFOs have lights on them?
Exactly. Question. Yeah.
If they've traversed space, time, dimension, whatever, why would they have to have lights on them? We have lights, that's the way our aircraft navigate and things, we can see them. But why would UFOs have lights on them? Anybody got answers on a postcard, please? I don't know.
No, and I think that, again, it's us trying to rationalize, I hear this a lot. Why would UFOs appear in the flight path for an international airport? Wouldn't they go somewhere else? Well, that's us making our own human interpretation on what an advanced civilization should be doing. And that's, again, kind of coming into it with bias. Don't you think?
Well, exactly. And unless you believe in sort of, a different form of evolution, when the aliens get here, well, guess what? They look pretty much like us. What are the chances of, A, they find us in the first place, from somewhere out in the universe, they find us. And when they get here, they have 2 arms and 2 legs and 2 eyes and a humanoid. When we look around on our own planet and see the diversity of life that we have here on this small speck. So what are the odds on that? And not only is there one of them, there's a load. You can put a composite picture together of all these different types of alien beings. So, is it some kind of summer camp? Do they all come here from throughout the galaxy for their vacation? It doesn't make that much sense when you think of it in a slightly different way. But people still do have strange encounters, experiences, call them whatever you want. I don't deny that at all. But it's just how we try and make sense of it and how we interpret them.
Yes, exactly. And I think but we need to step back from imposing our own beliefs on this, and I know it's hard not to, because we have to rationalize things, and that's just the way humans are. But it just poses all these great questions, and I love it. And we are going to get ready to take our last break for the evening, and I knew I was going to have a fascinating conversation, and I hope Philip you'll come back, because we've got so much more to talk about. But when we get back from the next break, I want to just touch on a little teeny bit your controversy with the alien autopsy, and you did great work on that, and then a couple other things. But everybody, thank you for listening, and send me good vibes in New Mexico this weekend. I hope that it is fun. I know it will be, and I hope I do a great job. So we're going to take our break, and we will be right back.
Stand by.
This is UFO Classified with Erica Lukes. The phone lines are open now at 702-425-9230. That's 702-425-9230. Worldwide callers use Skype name KCOR Radio. More UFO Classified with Erica Lukes on the KCOR Digital Radio Network. After this.
You're listening to
UFO Classified with Erica Lukes, where the truth isn't hidden beneath the black lines of a Sharpie.
That's the craziest thing I've ever heard.
To be on with Erica, call 702-425-9230. That's 702-425-9230. Worldwide callers use Skype name KCOR Radio.
Radio contact.
Share your thoughts on the show on Twitter by using hashtag KCOR. Or head over to the live chats at KCORradio.com.
The audience goes nuts.
And now, your host of UFO Classified.
Are you ready?
Erica Lukes.
Welcome back, everyone. This is Fantopia Friday on KCOR, so stick around for a wonderful night of intelligent women. After my show, Joanna Roth will be here on Universal Child, and then Tina Marie on Restricted Airspace, and Solaris Blue Raven will wrap it up with hyperspace. So get your pajamas on, get a cocktail, glass of wine, and stick around for a wonderful Friday night on KCOR. We are back with my guest, I've just decided he is coming back on the show. Philip, whether you like it or not, you have to come back because of your contributions, and you're a publisher and you're internationally known and respected in this field, and I think that is so important, and we can learn so much from you. So thank you for everything you've done for us.
I'm blushing now.
Oh, good. I'm glad I have that effect. That's good, but it's so true. I mean, I've gone through this and I have learned very quickly that there are people that don't have good information or don't even want good information. And so for somebody to find a person like you who has been more than willing to help and get good information out, I mean, it's really says something, and that's important for all of us. So thank you.
My pleasure, I can assure you.
Oh my gosh, it's fun, and the stories that you have, and all of your work, and going to Hessdalen, and oh my Lord, I mean, we are definitely going to have to talk. But your contributions in this, one of your big contributions was the amazing job you did debunking the alien autopsy film, and that took you years to really get through all of that, didn't it?
I still get slated for it now. I mean, I spent 14 years looking into it. I mean, like I said earlier, things just happened by accident. And in 1993, I was press officer for Bufora, and a letter arrived from a company called the Merlin Group, basically asking if we could assist them in making a documentary. And it was signed by a chap called Ray Santilli. So I wrote back, sent some information, and then had a telephone conversation with Ray. Basically was, sounding me out about doing a documentary. And I told him what we could do and what we couldn't do, and he was, And then during our conversations, he says, "Well, Philip, I've actually got footage of the aliens at Roswell being, dissected, autopsied." I said, well, I just said, "Show me." Simple as that. So the conversation went, yes, I can, no, I can't, yes, I can, no, I can't. And I met Santilli in London when we hosted an evening with Travis Walton and Mike Rogers. They were promoting the movie Fire in the Sky. And Santilli's offices weren't far from there. And he came and he told me about meeting this retired military cameraman and buying this footage from him in cash. And so I just said again, "Show me." So nothing happened. So I had got his business card and almost, forgot about it. And then in January 1995, a video cassette arrived through my door, which was the Roswell the movie, which was made by Paul Davids. It was just being released in the UK, and I'd been sent a review copy. And it prompted me to remember Ray Santilli. So I dug out his business card, rang him up in London. I live 200 miles north of London, and I said, "Well, do you still claim to have this film?" And he said, "Yeah, but you don't believe me, Philip." I said, "Well, I can't believe you until you show me." So he said, "Okay, make an appointment with my secretary, come down to London, I'll show you." And hey presto, that's exactly what happened. And I was also Bufora's conference organizer. We already had a conference organized for later that year in August. And I just stood in his office and I just said, at the spur of the moment, I thought, we've got to get this film out in the open. And I just said, "Will you show it at our conference?" And to my amazement, he said yes. We shook hands on it. There was no money involved or anything like that. And that's how it all started, just by chance. And in the early days, Santilli there was no TV involved, no newspapers or anything. He was going to sell it himself on video. And I helped him produce this video. And he did sell it. And I have copies of it here. And as we all know, it was a sensation. I mean, nobody planned anything or expected it to happen like it did. It was aired on Fox, as we know, in the US, and countless other TV stations around the world. They eventually made a movie out of it a few years, about 10 years later, and he made a ton of money out of it. And I remember sitting at lunch one day with Santilli in London, and I said, "Look, Ray," I just looked him in the eyes and I said, "I'll get to the bottom of this, one way or another." And I didn't know what the bottom was, Eric. I had no idea. When the film was shown around the world, my hope was that someone would come forward and they would say, "Philip, that's me on there. I'm an actor. It's all nonsense." Or perhaps someone would come forward and say, oh, that's, a science fiction film I made, for fun years ago, or that's my grandfather on there, and it's real. But nothing, not a thing. Nobody forward, not a sausage. And so, what I decided to do, because I'd already got to know Santilli and his character, was in public and to his face, I would agree with him. And I would say things like, yeah, you show him, Ray, this is what we're waiting for, this is the smoking gun. But behind closed doors, I was just scratching away, trying to find out what it was. So I was like the proverbial duck on the water. It was very calm on the surface, but my legs were paddling like mad underneath. And I couldn't make that public. So I got criticised for supporting him. But I knew Ray's character, Erica, was if you attacked him, he would just cut you dead. You'd never find anything. It would have nothing to do with you, which did happen to people. And I took the opposite. And, if slowly but surely, we managed. I worked with a number of colleagues in different parts of the world. Mark Center was one of the main ones in the US. If you're listening, God bless Mark. And eventually we get a few cracks and a little bit of info here, a little bit of info there. And 14 years later, we did prove it was a hoax. And got the man behind it. There was a man called Spiros Milaris. He was the mastermind behind it. He was the man that led the team that faked it. He's gone on the record. Santilli still denies it. He's changed his story, I don't know how many times. But, it was easy to dismiss it, Erica. But we can all do that. But,
and that's so great. I mean, good for you, 14 years. And I think it is important that you kept up that public persona, because that was an important thing to do to get more information.
Well, at the time when it first came out, I was even accused by one idiot of being Ray Santilli's accomplice. I'll give you an example about some of the idiots in the business think. At the time, my wife and I were having an extension built on our house. And it was, where's Philip Mantle getting the money from to build this? He hasn't got that kind of money. Right? My wife did, but nobody thought to ask. They just put 2 and 2 together and made 64, And even just recently, another buffoon has accused me of, selling the alien autopsy hoax. I didn't sell anything. I just tried to get to the bottom of it. And I couldn't tell people that I was being nice to Santilli's face, but behind his back trying to find out what was going on. Otherwise, he would have got to know, and that would have been the end of it. We would never have got to the bottom of it,
Right.
I had a small number of trusted colleagues in different parts of the world. Odgunner Road in Norway was one, Mark Center in the United States was another, and one or two others. And we were almost like a little underground network, if you like. We'd share things with each other. But it never went any further. It was kept private and confidential between us. And when I got a leak or a break, and Mark helped enormously in America. And we got there in the end. And one of the things I've tried to give people the example is two things. Once, when the Alien Autopsy film hit the TV screens, it was a sensation. And what it did, rightly or wrongly, it got people interested in Roswell and UFOs and so on. It really did. But then we had the skeptics. And Philip Glass was still around then. I met Philip once. At the end of the day, the person that proved it beyond a shadow of a doubt to being a fake, a hoax, was a UFO researcher, me, and my colleagues that worked with me, but primarily myself. It wasn't one of the debunkers. It wasn't one of the skeptics. We can all take the easy option, Erica, and you come round and say, I've taken this photograph, it's a fake, and dismiss it out of hand. Well, we can all do that. But I was determined, no matter how long it took, I would get to the bottom of it. And thankfully I did. And the rest, as they say, is history.
And that is what we all should do. And I just commend you. I've heard you talk about this on different radio shows, because it's important for us, if we're going to come out and debunk things or come out in favor of, okay, yes, this is something anomalous. I mean, we need to make sure that we are doing the kind of work that you did on this, and that's important. And I look at sometimes smaller cases here where somebody puts something on YouTube and they're really genuinely wanting answers for themselves, and then you get some blowhard, coming out that's an investigator and says, "Oh, that's a hoax. That's da 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 da," without even investigating or talking to the witness, and that's a really dangerous road to go down.
Well, I mean, a prime example was last year with the Roswell Slides fiasco. Those that were involved didn't keep people informed and signed non-disclosure agreements, so on and so forth. But had they come to me, with my experience with the alien autopsy film, I would have been able, to steer them in the right direction. But they thought they were heading for glory. And of course, as soon as, the pictures were out, then again, there was a small band of researchers in different parts of the world that said, "Hey, excuse me, it's a mummy." And within no time, they found out exactly which mummy it was. All I did was show the picture to a few archaeologists. They came back and said, "What are you saying me this for? It's a mummy." A simple thing to do, but it's a prime example of what can happen. But hey ho, there's another one. But you must stick to your guns, Eric. You're right. If you investigate a case and you are convinced it's the genuine article, it might not be anything fantastic, then nail your colours to the mast. If you're wrong, you're wrong. We all make mistakes. We're all human. But similarly, if you think somebody's trying to pull a fast one, prove it's a hoax. Don't just label it as one. That's the chicken's way. That's easy to be done. Or don't bother at all. Let other people get on with it that have something to contribute to the subject. And like I said, I'm still criticised for the alien autopsy today, but not, the people that criticise me won't think to ask me a few simple questions. And I can answer their critical questions on why I did this and why I took such a stance and what was happening in the background. And interestingly enough, the first batch of paper files that I have here that are being digitised now is all my research into the alien autopsy film, because most of it was done in the old-fashioned way, letters, faxes.
Oh, that's so great, though, to have that paper, to have all of that documentation like that.
Yeah, and it's all been scanned. A gentleman must thank Steve Meara in the UK. I got an email a couple of days. About 80% of it is now scanned. What the hell I'm going to do with it when it's done, I don't know. We haven't decided yet, but somehow I'm going to make it, available to the public, and they can look at it themselves. But I'm glad I stuck to it, and I'm glad I got there in the end.
Oh, that is so incredible, and thank you for bringing up that point about archives and really preserving them for the new people coming into the field. I talk to Barry Greenwood quite frequently, and he's done such an amazing job with archives and preserving documents. And he often will talk about the fact that some of these older researchers are passing away, and they have no, the family just tosses their decades worth of work into the trash. And so nobody has an idea of all of this, and it really is important to get all of this information in one place so good researchers can get in there and start making connections and build upon it.
Plas Svan in the AFU in Sweden has got some financial backing, thankfully, and they are digitising a whole host of material. They're doing a fantastic job. Here in the UK, a good friend of mine called John Hanson, who has published a series of books under the Haunted Skies title, again has been not digitising it, but he's been trying to save material that otherwise would have ended up in the bin. For example, I had quite a large collection of UFO magazines, but no room for them, so they are now housed with John. So I've started with the alien autopsy files. They're being digitised now. Once they're done, I'll have a word with Steve Meara and look at getting some of the case files I've worked on down the years digitised as well. I'm just hopeful Steve will be able to do that. But so much has gone on the rubbish tip, Eric. Once it's gone, it's gone. There's no recovering it. So I think it's important to do that, and I'm on with it the best I can. I'm not being the best in recent years, so I thought I better get something done with this while I've got the opportunity.
Oh, thank you so much. It's so important. And I know here in Utah, there are a couple researchers, Junior Hicks, who worked up at, who lived by Skinwalker Ranch, and then Dr. Frank Salisbury, who wrote really an important book, UFOs over Utah, the UFO display. And, these things, to get their research, or Elaine Douglas, some of these people, I mean, it's so important for all of us. So I'm really happy to hear that you're doing that.
Yeah, and we'll make it available if it's all possible. Free of charge. It's as simple as that, and then people can do what they want with it. If it helps their research, fine. If it's of no use, well, there's no problem with that at all. But that's ongoing. And what I've also been able to do, Erica, we talked a bit about what's happening today, but I've got some of these old files out. I've been able to go back to some of the witnesses from 5, 10, 15, 20 years ago. See if anything has continued to happen with them. And to my surprise, yes, it had with some of them. And how do they now look at the subject, look at their particular sighting or encounter? Do they interpret it any differently today than they did when it first happened? And that is something that's ongoing now. And I've written a few little articles that I've just distributed all over the place. Hopefully somebody will publish them. That looks at some of these old cases. I mean, I even found a landing report I had with some pictures of the circle in the grass from Israel. And I'd forgotten all about it. And so I published that. And I've just sent it off anyway. And so that's ongoing. That keeps me occupied, and something that I'll continue with.
And that is so amazing. I can't wait to look at some of these, to read some of these, and to tell people about them, because it's important. And I love the fact that you're going back into some of these old cases, because, when I get a case, I mean, to me, that case is never closed. It's just added upon. I'm constantly, you've got one case, and then what does that say? What's the larger context of this? And how do we, how do we figure out the patterns? And I think it's really cool you do that. I love it.
Yeah, well, the first case I picked out, and I picked them out really at random, and it's a gentleman from 1995. I'm not going to mention his name. And he had a one-off encounter, him and his wife and family, just after returning from holiday. And it was almost like one of the flying triangles, but not quite. And I thought, and I wrote to him. I had no idea. I mean, this is writing. There's no, I had no idea if he was still alive, if he still lived there. To my surprise, he was still there. And I said, I spoke to him on the phone. Anything else happened? He says, Philip, it's never stopped. And it's over 20 years since he sent this reporting to me. And he said, I've been documenting it down the years, and I got fed up of documenting it. It was just too much. So I stopped the conversation there because I wasn't prepared for that. And I've agreed to phone him back at a later date and take some more details from him. And that was the first one I just picked out at random. And I thought, well, that's really spurred me on to do some more.
Oh, I can't wait to see your work, and we have to get ready to wrap it up. But I want to ask you one closing question. Do you think that we should be concerned about whatever this is?
No, I don't. It's like being afraid of the dark, Erica. We know it won't hurt us, but we're still scared of it anyway. Don't get me wrong. Some of these encounters that people have, and they do have very bizarre encounters that I'm not sure I fully understand. And it can frighten the living daylights out of them, and I've seen that, firsthand, the effect it's had on them. However, I've also spoken to other people who got a very positive outcome from their encounter. So again, it very much depends on the individual in question. But what I would urge people to do, and I'll do it myself, which is, I've tried to do it, is if you encounter anything that we would loosely label under paranormal, is confront it. And then you might find out a bit more about it.
That's great advice. I do just have so many wonderful things to share, and I cannot wait to talk with you more just for my own research and to learn from you. I hope that everybody gets out there and finds people like Philip. He can be found at Flying Disc Press. He's got a blog, and he has all of his new books that he edits and things with his publishing company. And I just want to say that we can learn so much from you. I can't thank you enough. I knew I was just going to adore you, so you've made my day.
No, it's my pleasure, Erica. It really is, and I hope you enjoy your time in New Mexico. I bet it's hot there.
I think it will be, and I will have to have you back because I want to talk to you about crop circles and some of the stuff that you've got going on over there, which is quite interesting. But we will have you back, and I thank you so much. To all of my listeners out there, thanks for tuning in. And next week, I have another special treat. Fran Ridge will be on the show. So read up on Fran and the work of NICAP. Thank you all for listening. I'm Erica Lukes. Have a happy and safe Friday. We'll catch you next week.
Listen very carefully.
This is Houston. Say again, please. Houston, we've had a problem.
This is UFO Classified, live every Friday night, 4 p.m. Pacific, 7 p.m. Eastern, exclusively on the KCOR Digital Radio Network. The truth is out there, just waiting to be discovered.
And now, if you will, accompany me on a journey to the future.
For more information on the host of UFO Classified, Erica Lukes, upcoming guests, as well as links to the past shows, visit her website at ufoclassified.com. UFO Classified. UFO Classified. UFO Classified. This is KCOR Las Vegas, home of the Digital Radio Network, broadcasting from a shack just south of Area 51.